thinking of how my breakfast ends up on my table. And I imagine the many hands that have played a part in that. There is the wheat that was grown and was harvested and was prepared, and then bread was made, and then it came to my shop that is next door, and the milk, the bacon, I mean, everything. For me to have breakfast, everything that comes to my table involves a lot of people. Now, this is Now Tell Us. I'm your host, Anthony Murori. But Now Tell Us, we have guests can come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us. They come and share with us a topic that they are passionate about. And today we have a guest who is saying that nothing in nature lives independently. That's my story. I don't know his story. We're going to find out his story. That's how I just view that all of us are dependent on each and every one of us. His name is Kevin Howard. He's gonna be here shortly. Before we go to meet Kevin, I would like to remind you to please share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question, ask. We'll make an effort to answer it. If you have a comment, just make your comment. We appreciate feedback, even if you get to watch the recorded version. And we appreciate each and every one of you. Yes, so thank you very much in advance. And now, because I don't want to take more time because I want to go and meet Kevin, I'll ask you to please join me as we go together to meet him to tell us how nothing in nature lives independently. Here we go. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Anthony. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. Someone told me that I'm doing better than good.
There we go. That's exactly how I feel. Hey, any day you could take the next breath is a good day.
Oh, yeah, sure. And every time I see a light in the morning, I give glory to God. I say, oh, yeah, I'm here again. Thank you, my maker.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for inviting me to come talk to you and your listeners today. I'm excited about the conversation.
And we are actually honored to have you here in our show today. This is Now Tell Us. And so you are free to tell us anything that you like us to hear. But first, let me start by knowing where is it in the world that you are right now?
Right now, I am coming in. I live in a home on the Oregon coast of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So, right outside my window, within a mile from my back porch, is the Pacific Ocean. So I live in a coastal community called Otis, Oregon, and we've lived here for a few years. It's very much our dream home because it's we live on a nature preserve,
Mm.
so, we have, there's no hunting in this area. There's no commercial fishing in our oceans in this area. It's a marine reserve. And so, therefore, there's an abundance of nature. We have herds of elk and deer. We have three types of salmon and all types of fish in the estuary and in the ocean. Because again, it's not overfished commercial fishing, and there's no hunting in this area. So nature is allowed to just be abundant, and that's
Hey,
why we live here.
sounds like you're living in paradise.
It, for me, it's not for everyone. Some people their paradise is in the middle of the big city with the hustle and
Mhm.
bustle. For me, aligning with nature, yeah, that it is
Yeah,
paradise for me.
and that's me too. If I'd get to have that chance to live in such kind of world that you've described, that's my paradise. Unfortunately, right now I live in the city, and I'm always looking for that opportunity when I get a time to rush there and enjoy the nature. So I envy you.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I was born and raised in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, raised very much in the American culture. This is the culture that I was born here. My family is here. Though I've had the pleasure of traveling several places around the world, this is my native culture. And so I very much grew up in a very modern context, defined by the virtues of my native culture.
Mm-hmm.
Independence, self-interest, competition, all that, that defines what it is to be an American.
Mm-hmm.
And I started down the path of building my life to achieve my American dream. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the aspiration of America, that, we invite anyone to come here, or historically we have, and they too can achieve their dream, which is whatever that is. Typically, that's some form of financial independence, where you get to reclaim your time and do with it what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started down the path, went to school, went to college, went to graduate school, started my career, and I got to a point where I had very much achieved the idyllic middle class American dream. I had the
Mm-hmm.
house, I had the wife, I had the kids, I had the toys, I had money in the bank, all that stuff. And I found myself deeply unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how could this be possible? I did everything I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I said to myself, well, okay, the reality is I am deeply unhappy, for whatever reason. I need to understand why. And that set me on a journey, 10, 12, 15 years of journey of introspection. What
Mm-hmm.
is it about the circumstance that gets me to a place where I think I have everything I want, and yet it's proven to be completely unsatisfying? So what's that all about? And as I looked into myself and got to understand who I am, and when you don't know what the problem is, you got to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
So I started going back to the basics. Okay, how do I survive every day?
Mm.
So then I start asking myself a series of questions, and they sound rudimentary, but we never think about this stuff. And
Mm.
your opening conversation to today's show started to tip on it. How many people have to be involved? I mean, who produced the food that I'm going to eat today?
Mm.
Who produced the clothes I wear today?
Mm-hmm.
Who produced the home that I live in? And on and on and on.
Mm.
Because my native culture has encouraged me to believe that I earned this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
as if I produced it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the fact that I could buy it means that it equates to the idea that I produced it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Because all of us have bought things, and you still get the food poisoning. It
Mm.
doesn't work when you get it home, right? So it is a human being, or a process of human beings that produce the things. And if they don't, if they're distracted, if they're unfulfilled, if they're unhappy, if they can't take care of themselves and their family, and they're doing it, maybe they're not going to do it as well. And
Mm-hmm.
how that affects us is we get the bad product, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so this started illuminating a certain thing that I didn't realize, which is that the lens that my native culture gave me
Mm.
for seeing the world, for viewing myself,
Mm-hmm.
for assessing what success is, and what purpose is, that lens, the virtues that define those things,
Mm.
are at odds with actually how I live each day,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I, I started to realize that this is the very definition of a term called cognitive dissonance.
Mm.
If you believe something that conflicts with what you actually do, it causes dis-ease. It causes a discomfort. There's a detachment. You know something is wrong and you don't know what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was experiencing when I had achieved everything I thought I was supposed to achieve as a middle class American and stuff like that, and I was totally unfulfilled. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was the detachment, because that wasn't what was going to fulfill me. It
Mm.
wasn't about me accumulating everything I could for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about me thinking that I'm successful and the person carrying a sign on the side of the road is not successful because
Mm-hmm.
I'm better than that person.
Mm-hmm.
Quite to the contrary,
Yeah.
And so as I started going down this journey, I realized, gosh, how did we get to a place? And this is a human challenge of modernity,
Mm-hmm.
because indigenous communities haven't forgot this lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
In modern society, we've gotten to a place where it's normal to hate the hands that serve us.
Mm-hmm.
We have these terms like tree hugger for someone who likes trees, and yet we breathe air, oxygen, and
Yeah.
exhale carbon dioxide. And if
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't for the trees taking that carbon dioxide and using the carbon with sunlight in the process of photosynthesis, right, to cleanse the air of the carbon, that we get to take the next breath. Yet we're over here saying, "Oh, but that tree is in the way of human development." We're trying to put a parking lot there, or an office building there, and anyone trying to protect the tree is naive and stuff like that. Yet this is how we breathe every day. So how did we develop to a point where we absolutely forget how we survive each day? And it's because of these virtues
Mm-hmm.
that we're learned. We learn them as children, and
Mm-hmm.
they become the measuring sticks for how we see the world, see each other.
Yeah.
And that it was important for us to reassess these virtues in
Mm-hmm.
order to reconnect with who we are,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And so it took me like 10, 15 years, and I started to notice at my lowest moment, in terms of just feeling worthless and unhappy and how can I get out of this pit, I started to realize that of all my experiences, the truth that I came to realize was much more a function of
Mm.
the practical experience of my life, of my lived lessons. The
Mm.
lived experiences that I have taught me more about what is actually true, what
Mm.
actually works, right, than the stories that my native culture told me. and
Mm-hmm.
that and that I need to dismantle those stories so that I can connect once again with what is true, with what actually resonates. And
Mm.
this is where happiness and fulfillment is possible, is that you start to align how you start to do what you say what you do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then go so a lot of what I say sounds really, really obvious,
Yeah.
but that's the thing about the truth. The truth is simple. You know what's complicated? The lie.
The
The
lies.
lie, the lie is, and
Find everything.
modern society.
Yeah. Mhm.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anthony. What were you
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. I'm saying you try to find everything to feel uh, and ideas and concepts to feel that, so that you convince people to think in the way that you're thinking, which is a lie at some point.
And that's all I'm saying. Okay, so going back to how we survive each day,
Mm.
realizing how we survived each day had profound impacts on my life.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I was so much more than this separate physical body.
Mm-hmm.
That actually, this physical body is not designed it's not self-sustaining by
Mm-hmm.
itself. It needs things that it doesn't produce, that I'm not capable of producing. I'm not capable of producing the sunlight. I'm not capable of producing air. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
capable of producing the atmospheric pressure that allows this body to stay in its form. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if my body went out in space where there's no atmospheric pressure, it would balloon to twice the size and kill me in the process, because
Yeah.
there's pressure inside the body to do our circulation. So we survive just from the atmospheric pressure of this planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Before we do anything, before we do take the next breath that allows us to do anything, we have to receive such an abundance of gifts, right? That has nothing to do with what we did. What the implications of that is, we actually live in an interdependent way.
Mm-hmm.
There is an interdependence, not codependence. And the distinguishing difference between interdependence and codependence is there's a mutual benefit.
Mm-hmm.
The trees need our carbon to produce the to produce the food in photosynthesis,
Mm-hmm.
and we need the trees to clean the air of the carbon so we can breathe again. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a symbiotic, sustainably symbiotic relationship
Mm-hmm.
between life and nature.
Yeah.
And that's how we live, which tells us that we are a part of this whole system of
Mm,
nature. We're
mm,
much bigger. We're a part of humanity. We're a part of each other. None of us survive independently. We, even in the most modern society, we specialize our skills and exchange those skills. We offer those skills in exchange for money, and then take the money and buy everything that we're incapable of producing for ourselves.
mhm.
That's an independent symbiotic type of relationship. But we're convinced that that means that it's because we are better. Because what we did, there's a distorted filter that
Mhm.
balloons what we do at the expense of what everyone else is doing to allow us to do what we do. and
Mm.
and so my journey was a journey of humility,
Mhm.
that, oh yeah, all this is not about me, but at the same time empowerment. Yeah, but even though all this is not about me, I have the capability, of I'm empowered to make a difference. I'm
Mm.
empowered to give back. The very nature of the symbiotic relationship is that the more you give, the more you get,
Yeah.
right? And so once I realized that I survive each day based on the contributions of thousands of people I'll never know, who
Mhm.
live all over the world,
Yeah.
all of a sudden that changes my attitude about nationalism.
Mm.
That changes my attitude about the stranger.
Mhm.
The stranger, modern culture, stranger danger. You don't know who this person is. Maybe they're going to hurt you. You're not going to trust them unless you know more.
Yeah.
When actually that's the person who fixed the brakes on your car. That's the
You know,
person who drove your food to the supermarket. That's the person who harvested. There's so many things that person may have done to contribute to your well-being. And how do we approach them? So
mm,
now, when I see the stranger, I see the stranger as a part of me I do not yet know,
yeah,
because
exactly.
I wouldn't exist without what so many of these strangers, people I will never know, have done. You
That's very
know,
true. Very
and
true.
so that's where the tagline, my one of my favorite, nothing in nature lives independently, because
Mhm.
particularly in America, I'm trying to. It's a clarion call, because this is such a particular value here in the United States,
Mhm.
to challenge my fellow Americans to say, yeah, but is it true? Is independence really true? Can and if it's not, you know, how can we treat other countries, other peoples, the way we do? A classic example, we're not trying to get deep into the politics,
Okay.
but war in Ukraine.
Mhm.
Okay. So, I write about the war in Ukraine. I have a commentary in my book on what it lasts, called An Open Letter on the War in Ukraine. And I would invite people to go to my website, www.onwardatlast.com, and go
Mhm.
to the blog page, because you could see the commentaries there. And I have a commentary, Open Letter on the War in Ukraine, where you can get into the details of how I actually feel. But there's
Okay.
a lesson, what we do know, all of us absolutely knows. After Russia attacked Ukraine, right? The United States orchestrated an international economic embargo
Mhm.
of the most severe case. I mean,
Mm.
it's literally an economic death penalty. We
Mhm.
tried to we cut off their central bank, we seized their U.S. denominated reserves, all that stuff. Okay, and the thing about it is, it hurt us. It spiked inflation in Europe. It spiked inflation in the United States. You know, all this effort to hurt Russia.
Mhm.
It hurt? Of course, it hurt Russia. But the thing
Yeah.
about it is, it hurt us.
It hurts.
That's the interdependence. Guess what? And so people beat their chest talking about China and Taiwan. Yeah, you tried to sever your relationship with China. The United States hardly makes its pharmaceuticals. I mean, you talk about hurting us, and so, but this is the interdependence.
Mhm.
So the lens that suggests that we can hurt another country, destroy another country, and that it won't have implications on us, is what the universe is trying to show us. Learn from your actual experience, but
Yeah.
we keep on making the same mistake. you know,
Yeah. Because
we need
the
to.
dream, in the dream, we are taught is I win, you lose, and that's the way we. I mean, I just need to be on top there, and you somewhere down there, so I can boast that I made it, and you haven't.
Yeah, and that's all. So we've gotten far afield. My basic point is this, and my basic point in my book is this: is that is to encourage people to reconnect with who they are,
Mm,
and to the extent that we connect with who we are, starting with how we survive each day, it will change how we look at each other.
mm,
It will change how we look at nature,
mm-hmm,
right? And we will discover that we're individual members of one human family, right?
mm, mm,
That and that anything that literally that's factually true. That's not a normative thing. It's not because it's supposed to be that way. It's because it's actually that way. I mean, we don't eat without each other. We don't. I mean, the technology we're using here, we didn't. We neither one of us invented any of this.
none.
The very languages that we speak were made by generations way before us.
Exactly.
I mean, how many of us have created one word that we speak, right? And so that's what I'm saying. That's the nature of the interdependence that we have on humanity and the natural environment that sustains us. And when we get in touch with that, all of a sudden, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different story in terms of the resources of this planet, in terms of the relationships with each other, both locally and globally, right?
Mhm.
And we need that because now we're facing some challenges globally that nationalism can't solve. You
Mhm.
know, we're and so either we come together or we're not going to fix it. Climate change is an example of that.
Yeah.
And we cannot, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is the international group of scientists, 195 member nations working through the United Nations that examine, and research all climate related impacts and the solutions, how we can mitigate this risk, how can we adapt to the changes, and they put out definitive work on what is necessary for us, to mitigate the climate that is changing, because the changing of the climate is affecting biodiversity.
Yeah.
We are losing species at a rate of 1,000 times the background rate,
Mhm.
historical loss of species, right? Much of it is marine life, right?
Mhm.
So this is the kind of impacts that are happening, right?
Mhm.
Regions of the world are becoming unlivable. So how do we
Mhm.
mitigate that risk? The primary way is the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, which comes from the use of fossil fuels. And,
Mhm.
and this is not a problem that the United States can solve. The United States can eliminate its greenhouse gas emissions, and and we not bend the curve. So this is one that literally we're going to have to get together with the owners of fossil fuels, OPEC,
Mhm.
Russia.
Mhm.
They're going to have to cooperate on this if we're going to fix this problem. For example, right? You
Yeah.
know, the developing world, China and India, who are desperate for energy because they're trying to modernize their societies.
Mhm.
Over 1 billion people in each country, and most of their citizens live 50 to 100 years behind us. They're trying to build out their infrastructure and modernize their societies. Yeah, so they need energy today, right?
Yeah.
We can't get there if they're going to continue to get their energy through fossil fuels, right?
Mhm.
So we need China's cooperation, we need India's cooperation, we need Brazil's cooperation. Okay, this is a problem that we can't fix advancing the national security interests of the United States
Mhm.
or the EU or China or Russia or India. No, we got to put all that aside and come together as humans and say, okay, what is it going to take to fix this problem?
That's true.
And the interesting thing about it is it's going to involve, well, where's all the resources? And if most of the resources are in Europe and the United States because they benefited the most from all these fossil fuel
Mhm.
emissions, then they're going to have to help. They're going to have to help India. They're going to have to help the global South. They're going to have to help the continent of Africa. They're going to have to, that's the right thing to do. But
Yeah.
right now they're acting like, oh no, we're not going to fix the problem. So this is the implications of starting as an individual,
Mm-hmm.
getting back in touch with who you are, realizing that your life is a gift given to you by the contributions of many, many people you'll never know, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
that because you're getting this gift, it's incumbent on you to give something back to the system, give something back that serves the system, right? And that giving back is your unique skills, your unique talents for the good of everyone, right?
Yeah.
And if you can, once you realize that, then you apply it to every issue, local, national, global, right?
Mm.
And all of a sudden, real solutions, that
Yeah.
actually fix things occur.
Hmm. Yeah, because the gift that you're given is not for yours to keep, is to give. A gift
It's to
is
get
given to give. And the more you
that
give, the more you receive.
that's the beautiful thing about, literally, we can look in nature and see that's exactly what happens. I mean, it is there's an abundance in any healthy ecology that we can examine on the planet. There is an abundance of prey to support the predators. So in other words, the predators can eat their fill, and
Mm.
there's enough prey to continue to sustain and stuff like that. Right. The sad thing about it is humanity is the only predator that hunts their prey to extinction. That doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we've made gluttony a virtue. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, we don't just eat what we need. We just eat,
All
take it, and accumulate it, stack it in the backyard, and no one can touch it. When the lion is prowling and stuff like that, they grab the one gazelle or whatever,
and
eat.
that's it for the day.
That's it, and the whole herd is there. They're not hunting to no, and that's what I'm saying. See, that's how nature works.
Mm-hmm.
Nature provides an abundance for you to sustain, and for the thing that sustains you to sustain also, right?
Yeah, 'cause this
This
thing surprises me once I hear of individuals in many places who have offshore accounts and they've saved the billions and billions. How much can you spend in a year, in 2 years, 10 years, in a lifetime? How much?
well,
What's all these?
no, you're absolutely right. But see, but think about that. That becomes possible
Mm,
when you feel anything that I can accumulate legally, honestly, I have a right to.
mm-hmm,
But that's the wrong way to think. Because what happened? Because we do live in a finite world. And so if you think, if you, how could it be right for you to take more than you could possibly use when half the planet doesn't have enough to make a base to find out to find out even their skills to
mm,
contribute? I mean,
mm-hmm.
we half the planet is resource deprived
Yeah.
because so a few people have taken so much, and the thing is, they can't even use it all. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that is gluttony. That is the devilish sin of gluttony is you the level of waste. Yeah, it's stacking in the back. What would happen if every human on this planet who's capable, and you take any person you think is a gifted person,
Mm-hmm.
whoever that person is, every human on this planet has the potential to be that. If we invest in them, if we give them security,
Mm-hmm.
if we allow them to access the accumulation of human knowledge, if we give them good nutrition, if we
Yeah.
invest those little things, because those things are not expensive,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a planet of 8 billion people, all capable of offering what they can offer, their unique gifts. What kind of planet would this be?
How do we
Instead,
achieve that? How will we achieve that? Because it's a big.
well,
That's the dream. That should have been the American dream. I mean,
yeah. Well, Anthony, here's the thing. Okay,
yeah.
it sounds like utopia,
Mm,
but I submit to you, Anthony, that utopia is always the next stage of social evolution.
mm-hmm,
In American history, Thomas Jefferson wrote this note, wrote this notion, this theory, this statement, a bold statement.
mm-hmm,
We hold these truths to be self-evident,
mm,
that all men are created equal.
mm-hmm,
Now, when he said that, there was not a country on this planet who thought that that was true, who was organized on that basis. Even America wasn't organized on that basis. The Constitution had, counted slaves, people of color, as three-fifths persons and stuff like that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
even
yeah.
it was an aspirational statement.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's a given. Today, it's that's just the basis of United Nations Charter and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. All humans are precious, right?
Yeah.
Okay, even though we don't treat them that way. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
my point being is how we get to a place where we actually treat every human like they're precious, right? Is it starts with us.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get to a critical mass of people who recognize that none of us achieve whatever we achieve on our basis alone. That we cannot do it
Mm-hmm.
by ourselves. That
Mm-hmm.
we someone raised us. Someone cared for us when we couldn't care for ourselves. Someone taught us information that we then used
Yeah.
to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We mustn't ever forget the fact that we everything that we're able to do because we received an abundance of gifts, none of which we earned. So the idea that what we give to each other is based on what people earn, that's just not true. It's
Yeah.
not true based on how we actually live. So
Mm-hmm.
if you recognize that and you start making decisions in your life based on how you act, the wisdom of how you actually live each day, how you actually survive each day. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is what changes the world. This is just like Thomas Jefferson's statement. There are statements, there are realizations that do have profound ramifications. The next stage of social evolution is to move away from exploitative economics.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I talk a lot about economics in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We need to get past the binary mythology of capitalism or socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism was innovated in the 1700s, and socialism was innovated in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And every time, certainly in the American context, that anyone wants to do a substantive critique of capitalism, they're branded so that they can be discarded
Mm-hmm.
as socialists, right? As if the only choice in organizing our relationship with resources, which is what economics is all about.
Mm-hmm.
The only definitions, the only choices are capitalism or socialism. No, we need to innovate an economics of the 21st century
Mm-hmm.
that restores ecological sustainability. And there are economists working on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is a wonderful, wonderful British, British um, ecological economist named Tim Jackson,
Okay.
who wrote a book called Prosperity Without Growth:
Mm-hmm.
Foundations for the Economy of Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a movement called degrowth,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and this is the kernels, this is the green shoots of the development of thinking through what a new economic system would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot to do with resource management. It has a lot to do with changing our relationship with resources. Under a capitalist model, but and a socialist model to a certain extent, right? Our relationship with resources is about ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So if so what you can buy is how much resource you can get, and then you own the resource.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of us who are blessed enough to have a car, we buy the car. The car sits in our garage or in front of our house and stuff like that. And when we're not using it, it's just sitting there, wasting time. And most of the shelf life of most of the resources that we own are wasted,
Yeah, wasted.
waiting for us to use it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how about if we
That's
had
good.
a stewardship relationship with resources? When you're stewarding something, it's all about using it in a way that sustains, using it in a way that preserves for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's about efficiency. right? It's about, okay, everyone should have what they need in order to live fulfilling lives, in order to achieve their highest aspirations, what they can actually use and no more.
No more.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Okay, so
this is like in the jungle. I'm going to get this, and this is what I need, and this is after I've had this, I'll just wait for the next day to. This is.
well, but see, that's the thing. We're not encouraged to be. I mean, we're encouraged. We are encouraged in modern societies to always want more.
Mm,
So when you look at the billionaires and you say, how much money could you possibly want? You can't even count. You can't even count the money you have, right?
mm,
Okay, okay. But that's a byproduct of this of capitalist economics, which requires perpetual growth. Well, perpetual growth on a finite resource planet is not sustainable by definition. So
mm,
now you have economists who recognize this, and economists recognize this back to the, there was a Malthus is a famous economist back in like 1790s who wrote a treatise on the fact that this is not going to end well in capitalism. We're going to outgrow, and it's going to lead to deprivation of
mhm,
of a severe amount. Right? Okay. So they knew that this was a problem back in the day, but it's time for us to innovate without without discarding new ideas on the idea it must be socialism or something, and so Tim Jackson is working on this effort, and it is him and many other, there's a whole movement, degrowth movement, and it's very exciting because we have to learn how to share. We have to learn how to share, and the funny thing about it is we do it every day.
yeah.
So even the billionaire who goes home, and maybe they have two kids and a wife, when they cook dinner, husband and wife cooks dinner together, let's just be modern about it, and they put the food on the table,
Mm-hmm.
they're not competing for who gets the food. No, they put enough food on the table, everyone takes what they want past the plate, and that way everyone is going to eat and everything is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, except then we step outside, and how do we act? We take everything we can possibly take,
For
even
us.
if we can't eat it, right? Even if we can't, we accumulate, right? Okay, so we know how to do it because we practice it in our house. We practice it with people who we love. Well, we need to take those things which we know are the right things, right?
Mm,
That's how you have enough, right? You'll never have enough if everyone around the table grabs as much as they possibly can take, right?
mm-hmm.
Well, we have an abundant planet, and we have enough people who take as much as they can take, that we're actually challenging the resource capacity of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they have a special date. I think it's August 2nd, where by August 2nd of the current year, we have used all the resource the earth can produce for a full year. But we've used it by August 2nd. And
Oh,
everything else we use the rest of the year is actually robbing from future generations, which is why we're depleting the planet, right?
interesting.
Because we're consuming beyond the capacity of the planet to
Mm,
replenish. And the thing about it is, we're doing this at a time when half the planet is under resource. So between the United States and Europe, primarily, right? And yes, China's starting to get. I mean, that's the level of gluttony, of consumption. In with what 20% of the population of the planet, right?
mm,
Leaving so much of the planet under resource. You would be surprised the utopia that would exist if we actually shared, if we actually had a system that everyone had an equal claim to resource. And
wow.
so people like Tim Jackson and others are working on a different type of economics that's not exploitative,
Mm-hmm.
that changes the nature of our relationship with resource, and that's where we're going. If we're going to make it out of this climate catastrophe, and actually evolve to the next level of our social condition,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be one where we actually take care of each other, where we
Wow.
value all of us, and
Wow.
uh, and that's and that's because it's going to be necessary. Just that's the joy of nature. It's going to be, we do it or we will go extinct.
We
Humanity is facing extinction level events, you know. So here we are. Yeah.
Here we are. Wow. Wow. Now, what a day. What a episode. Thank you for all the insights, Kevin. We really appreciate you coming here. We are almost coming to the end of this show. And yes, the call is to everyone out there. Let's share. Let's remember each other and know that we are all valuable. And let's take care of our little planet. It's not as big if you think of the galaxies. Let's take care of it for future
Yes.
generations. So we really appreciate you. And uh, we have one Andrew Nganga says, "Be the change." That's one of our viewers today. Thank you, Andrew, and everyone else who's watching. We appreciate your presence here. Yes, let's go and be the change that we want to see in the world.
Indeed.
Yeah,
And just remember the takeaway I hope anyone who hears the show is it starts with the person that you see in the mirror. Get to know you, get to know how you survive each day. And then, based on the wisdom of that actual experience, that's how you turn around and look at the world and look at your connection to the world. If you do that, then everything we talked about today will just come natural.
thank you. Thank you for that. Look at the man in the mirror and then know that's what is going to determine where we are going to end up tomorrow. The man in the mirror. So
Indeed.
thank you for sharing.
So
Mhm.
I hope everyone comes to my website. If you want to expose, get to read some of my commentaries, www.onwardatlast.com. I have a book that I published that's available on all the online booksellers, Onward at Last. And it's available in hardcover, it's available in Kindle ebook, and it's available in an audio book with Carolyn Jania as the narrator. She did a wonderful job. October of this year, it's coming out in paperback. And but on top of everything else, this is not about making money for me. This is about getting a message. All the commentaries are available for free on the blog page there on the website, which the blog page is called the Universal Oneness Blog. So thank you all. I really appreciate, felt honored to be here and talking to you, Anthony, and your audience.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming to this show today. It is a great honor. And yes, it's onward at last. Here we go.
Appreciate it. That's right. We finally got to move past it, you know.
Yeah, onward at last. So let's not be still. Let's look forward and move there and do
That's
it.
exactly right.
Yeah. So that's about it for today at Now Tell Us. This has been your host, Anthony Murore. And together with our wonderful guest today, Kevin Howard, we are saying onward at last. Thank you, everyone. And yes, onward at last. We are here for one another. And let's do it. Here we go.
Exactly. Thank you.
So until next time, it's bye for now. Bye.